Jay Cow's life has the geometry of a story written in extremes, long rigid rows of camouflage and the abrupt exposed line where ordinary life begins and ends. He is, by training and temperament, a man of action, a Royal Marine turned Special Forces operator who spent nearly 2 decades answering dangerous calls, then found himself in a bewildering fight off the battlefield, an investigation that would shadow him and his teammates for years. This video follows that arc, the boy, the warrior, and the ripple of a single operation that changed everything. Born in Oxford into a family that moved and adapted, Jay's childhood was a patchwork of small rebellions, travel, and hard lessons. His mother, a tireless, free-spirited presence, took him to India as a child, exposing him early to the world's extremes and teaching him a kind of resilience that would later matter more than anyone could predict. He remembers sleeping in a tiny rucksack at 6, learning to carry his own kit, a small apprenticeship for a life built around self-reliance. These early journeys and the loss of his father carved an urgency into him to belong, to serve, and to be tested. Even then, there were flashes of the soldier he would become, fiercely competitive, stubborn, allergic to mediocrity. Teachers called him restless, but that energy translated later into discipline. He spent hours outdoors, building traps, climbing, breaking things just to see how they worked. He found freedom in chaos, but also order in movement, a paradox that would define his adult life. While other kids dreamed of cars and fame, Jay dreamed of uniforms and challenge, of earning something that couldn't be given. He followed family threads into the military. The Royal Marines called to him not as an escape, but as a vocation. Selection, brutal and clarifying, reshaped him. Long days of rope work, mountain training, and the relentless attention to tiny technical skill that separates a troop from a team. He moved quickly from raw recruit to specialist, mastering parachute duties and the high-pressure roles the commandos demand. The formation of his professional identity was practical and absolute. Competence became his currency. The next step was the crucible of Special Forces selection. In 2012, he earned his place among Britain's most secretive operators. This was permission to move in the smallest, most dangerous teams, to be entrusted with the kind of missions that have no margin for error. He deployed repeatedly with the regiment, learning how tiny decisions and clear thinking separate survival from disaster. Those years hardened his judgment and taught him leadership under fire. Across Afghanistan, Iraq, and North Africa, Jay was in the thick of it. 11 combat deployments, close work with partner units, and nights when the world reduced to smaller and smaller problems. Clear the room, secure the target, get your people home. He became a jumpmaster, a lead jumper, a targeteer, vocations that demand technical mastery. The men beside him became, in the raw sense, family. He also earned recognition for service and was chosen later to pass his craft on as an instructor, a role he embraced because teaching preserved the hard lessons he'd learned and kept the unit standards sharp. But combat isn't just a place you go, it's something that follows you home. Jay spoke of dust storms that felt like breathing fire, of helicopter blades vibrating through his chest at midnight insertions, of Afghan villages where children smiled in daylight and vanished at night. His tours blurred into each other, deserts, briefings, brothers lost, and the strange stillness of coming home to a world that didn't change while he did. Each mission refined his edge but dulled something human, a trade every operator eventually pays. When he left service, the shift was seismic. The regiment had been his structure, his calendar, his identity. Coming out, he described feeling like a teenager again, bewildered by simple logistics and stripped of the emotional infrastructure that sustained him. The civilian promise came through a lifeline. GBRS Group invited him to the US, offered a job as lead instructor, and wrapped him in a new family of teammates and purpose. The role fit. He could teach, handle kit, and keep the fidelity of that old life. But now, as a mentor, for a while, it felt like a second chance. Then came the operation that would change everything. In 2022, Jay led an assault team on a detention mission, a high-risk, meticulously planned capture of a partner force's highest value target. They knew the target, they had hours of intelligence, and the go order came from the highest levels of the regiment. But the job turned kinetic. As they dismounted and moved, they were engaged from multiple firing positions. According to Jay, he returned fire to protect himself and his teammates. 2 enemy combatants were neutralized in that exchange. Drone footage, he says, shows the sequence clearly, and there were dozens of witness statements corroborating the night. Yet what followed was not clearance. It was the beginning of a legal and institutional nightmare. In the wake of the operation, the Royal Military Police launched a probe that would strangle lives with uncertainty. Soldiers were detained, some arrested in humiliating circumstances, at home, in front of family, or even on deployed bases. Phones and tablets were seized. Men were told they were under arrest for murder. Jay describes the surreal sequence: flown back to an operation station, fingerprinted, swabbed, and left in limbo without proper legal access for months. Attempts to obtain legal support were blocked by procedural failures and by a ministry that could not or would not read lawyers onto classified material. What should have been a matter for operational review became a public narrative. Headlines, leaks, and the word murder repeated in ways that cut deep. The human cost was brutal. The waiting and the public spectacle eroded mental health across the unit. Jay reports a breakdown in January 2025 and reveals that he reached the edge of self-harm, later seeking treatment and even travel abroad for alternative therapies. Relationships frayed, careers stalled, honors and citations previously promised were revoked or withheld. Simple things, a visa, a job opportunity in the US, were stopped because an official sheet listed him as under investigation for murder. The quiet work of living, being a parent, paying bills, sleeping at night, became a daily fight. GBRS paid legal fees and supported him through the immigration fights. Even so, the damage was done. Jay insists on one thing: he and his team did what they were trained to do. He and many colleagues argued the regiment's chain of command had signed off on their actions, yet a higher referral led the case up to the Royal Military Police and into the public domain. Jay asks a question many veterans now ask: if you serve in the shadows, who is accountable when decisions are later second-guessed in daylight? He is not merely defending himself, he is trying to draw attention to process, to how investigations are handled, and to the institutional costs when secrecy collides with transparency. For Jay, it is not only about clearing his name, it is about preventing future damage to other soldiers and families who might be swept up in similar reviews. His story is not a tidy narrative of villain or saint. It is the messy truth of modern warfare and modern accountability. Bravery does not inoculate you against bureaucracy, and service does not guarantee mercy in the court of public opinion. Jay's life shows both the glow and the grit of elite service, how deep devotion to team and mission can bring honor and sometimes heartbreak. He has tried to translate his experience into purpose, teaching, building a company that promotes everyday patriotism, and speaking out so the men he left behind are not made collateral in someone else's campaign. Jay Cal's story is about more than a contested night in 2022. It is about how nations deploy, how institutions investigate, and how men and women pay the price when the two meet badly. If this video leaves you with one question, let it be this: how should society hold warriors to account while also protecting them from processes that devastate careers and families before the facts are fully known? If you found this account illuminating, share it, discuss it, and, if you're inclined, look deeper into the reporting. These lives affect real people, and the consequences echo far beyond any single headline.